Welcome to We the Game Changers. I'm Beth Knox, President and CEO of the Seattle Sports Commission. This series amplifies the unique leadership journeys of people disrupting the status quo and offers insights, inspiration, and actionable advice for anyone looking to grow their leadership skills. Whether you're an aspiring leader or a seasoned professional, this series will leave you feeling empowered and ready to make a difference. Let's start the conversation with Maya Mendoza-Exstrom, Chief Business Officer of Seattle Reign FC and one of the influential leaders of soccer in the Pacific Northwest. She's helped bring the 2026 FIFA World Cup to Seattle, and as a mom, a daughter, and a lawyer, she's focused on building bridges to leadership for future generations. Hello, Maya.
Good morning.
It is so great to be with you. Welcome to our launch series of We the Game Changers podcast. We're so excited to have you as part of our early episodes.
Appreciate it. Super happy to be here. Really excited about the podcast, and I can't wait to see what you all do with this.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Well, and it's also been fun to watch you over the course of your career through sports, from, of course, the Sounders FC to the Rave Foundation. You and I worked together on the bid for the FIFA World Cup, and now in your new role with the Reign FC. You've had impact along the way in a lot of different ways. Tell us a little bit about, did you intentionally set out to change the world? Did it happen along the way? What were some of those moments like for you?
No, I mean, intentionally change the world, no. I think that you, like I do, believe in the power of sport to do good. I'm pretty unabashed about my belief that soccer has the capacity to change the world for the better and make it a more equitable place. It's been an ever-present part of my life to be involved in sports as a player and an administrator and a volunteer and a coach and a referee and now in a professional capacity. I've had it woven throughout everything for me. I think the coolest thing is that it's here. Like I'm a lifer in Seattle. I'm born and raised, and so it's really hard to get the Seattle DNA out of me. And sports in Seattle just go together.
So did you have a moment when you said to yourself, "Wow, I am making a difference," or has it just been something that is part of your DNA? Or do you have those moments of recognition of the leader that you are?
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I think I've always gravitated towards roles in groups that are on the leading edge, right? I think I was always the captain of every team that I played on, whether I was a freshman or senior. It was sort of the role that I was able to play the best. It's probably why I fell so into coaching right after graduating from college as well. But I think leadership is an evolution, right? So the fact that you might gravitate to that edge within a group of people doesn't mean you're necessarily have the skill set to be a leader. I think it's something that is constant in how we evolve in the sports industry, right? And so if we you asked if there's some moment, there's 1,000 moments. It's constant. There's a leading edge sort of necessity to professional sports. We're the first place where technology intersects. We are often the meeting place of multi-generations. We talk about I know you and I worked closely together in COVID, sort of thinking about all of the permutations of how we get back to play. And one of the things that I think we'll look back on and say is that was a great leap forward for our industry, because in one fell swoop, we went from folks who still wanted physical tickets to completely digitally literate, a digital experience in a sports context, and that technology gap was closed. Silver linings are where I think we have to sometimes look. And so being in a role where the evolution is happening in real time, I think you're constantly evolving. And so if you're in a place that is in a leadership voice, and at that moment in time, it was sort of from a legal perspective, because everyone was looking to the lawyers to try to figure out what we do. You continuously evolve in 1,000 different ways. I think if I look back on one thing, and I've talked about this a lot, I think I was profoundly humbled to do the work on the bid to bring the World Cup here, and to play a coordinating, leadership, convening role in that work was a really satisfying part of my professional life. It's now in the long rear view, but that moment probably stands out to me as one where I felt like I was in the right place at the right time with the right set of skills to play a role.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that was a moment of a tipping point, because once we were successful in securing the bid, now there's a whole group of people that are taking it to the place of hosting it here in Seattle. But there has to be that moment that it tips over into this is going to happen. So it's very exciting that you were part of that. You mentioned you were always a captain growing up of your teams. Talk a little bit about the role that sports played in not only leadership development, and we've heard lots of anecdotes about that. What was that like for you? How did that develop your leadership skills? And where did that role play in helping to be a change maker?
I think I'm really fortunate, first of all, growing up in the generation that I grew up, and really fortunate to have been born and raised here, right? And I think, you know, I'm that generation that directly benefited from Title IX, right? Title IX was passed just before my generation was born. And when I think back to the fact that I never, ever, ever had a moment in my youth life where I couldn't say to my mom, oh, I want to go do gymnastics. Oh, I want to go do swimming. Oh, I want to play volleyball. Oh, I want to play tennis. Oh, I want to play basketball. Oh, I want to play soccer.
Right.
And I played all of the sports, softball, baseball, etc. growing up. It was all available to me. And it was all available, you know, both genders together in a co-ed environment, single gender. For me, I could play girls soccer from the very beginning if I so chose. That was never off the table, right? So it's this generation of humans who it's a fundamental shift for all of us young girls growing up at that period of time, you know. And I think I've said this. There's so much talk, and there's rightfully so, about the 99ers in our sport, right? That sort of changed the game for all women's soccer globally, because it was, you know, Brandi Chastain in that moment put this sport on the map in front of 100,000 people at the Rose Bowl. But for me, it was the 91ers. Because I'm from here, I had the benefit of knowing the four members of the U.S. Women's National Team that won the first star, because they were all from here, from Washington, from Seattle, and those were my idols. You know, those were the posters on my wall.
Sure.
And at that time, you know, you had to chase the game to go see it. My parents would get word on the phone tree down the list in Washington Youth Soccer from managers calling managers and letting people know that, oh, the Ghanaian women national team is here to play a bunch of, you know, local professional, pre-professional. They were the equivalent of professional athletes at the time, but elite soccer players. Or, hey, by the way, there's going to be an all-star game happening and we would just get in the car and go and drive. And so I'm happy that generationally, for my kids, that's not an impediment. That we all know when things are happening. But there was a sort of presence of sports at the elite level. I could see elite women play, maybe not in a professional league, but they were here. And so for me, I don't know what my life would be like without both the access to play and play everything. But then when I fell in love with soccer to the degree that I did, and it aligned with my skill set and my capabilities as a player, to have folks that I could look to and say, that's the level I want to be at.
You know, I feel like that access to sports, from my own personal experience, also gave me a sense that I have a right to be at the table or in the room or part of a group. And I think that's one of the unspoken benefits of being part of sports as a young girl growing up in that era. So that I appreciate that perspective. Now we're going to jump ahead just a few years, and a similar question. You went to University of Washington, went to law school. How did that choice of going through law school, how did that influence your leadership style and the role that you play in our community?
I think I will say that being a lawyer and going through the process of law school, and then I was in private practice for about 8 years with my dad, with best mentor I could ever hope for in a general business practice. I think there's something to be said, and I've said this to folks who want to become lawyers. Say, I want to be a sports lawyer. It's like, there's no such thing as being a sports lawyer. There's being a good business lawyer, and a regulatory compliance lawyer, and a government affairs, specialist, and a real estate attorney, and complex, financing, transactions. Those are the skill sets of being a modern sports lawyer. But I think in terms of the rigor of law school and recognizing, it's really easy to have the rigor of graduate school be all-consuming. And I think I was coaching at the time.
Okay.
So I was coaching at the University of Puget Sound where I played through law school. And it's funny because my first year of law school, some of the best advice I got from my dad was, look, lawyers are like plumbers. Our job is to take our clients' problems and fit the pipes together. And sometimes we have to do it in intricate ways, and sometimes it's about doing it in the most simplistic way. And so his advice to me was to treat law school the same way I would treat soccer or any other thing I'd been through, which is more like a trade and a skill building exercise. And so I didn't look at my grades my whole first year of law school. I looked at it and said, my job is here to build skills. First year of law school is all about skill building, about breaking down everything you thought you knew and remaking you to think in a very different way, to write in a very different way, and I treated it that way. So much to the chagrin of many people around me, including our counselors who were trying to place you in jobs, I didn't look at my grades, and I treated it that way. And I think that sport background helped me do that. It helped me think about process and goal setting and how to approach unknowns, how to trust in a test environment that I had prepared well enough to do that. And I think I don't remember, and other people go through law school are probably rolling their eyes if they're listening to me say this. I don't remember a time where the stress overwhelmed me, and I think it's because of approaching it from that athletic mindset. I think that's not different to jumping into a role inside of in the professional context. And I can remember the very first time I was arguing a motion in a pretrial context, and it was a last-minute motion, and it was a little bit of an attorney trying to, I think, go after what he perceived was easy pickings in a young attorney. And the same mantra that I would say to myself running 120s in college to stay fit was the same pep talk I gave to myself outside the courtroom, getting ready to go into that first motion. So it 100% has translated to my mentality as a professional. Yeah.
I think that is such wise guidance about you're not looking at your grades and thinking about the skill building process. I mean, it's the classic, it's the journey, not the destination. Yeah. And we get so caught up in what is that end point that you can lose the value of the skill sets that you're gaining along the way. So you mentioned working with your dad, and I like you, I think he's an extraordinary individual. Talk to us a little bit about the process of bidding on the World Cup, the role that your dad had in the early days that even just made this bid possible, and what that meant to you to be able to carry on that piece of the legacy.
I think it was my legacy. I was a history major, so maybe 50 years from now we'll look back and say, of course,
perspective,
right? Look. You talk about the early days of soccer in this community, and the Washington State Youth Soccer Association is one of the oldest in the country. It was founded in the late 60s. It predated the Sounders' arrival by about 6 years. And when the Sounders came, they invested in Washington Youth Soccer. And so you have this far-flung upper left coast world where the soccer community has been pretty stable in terms of the players, the people, for over 50 years now, right? The Sounders, we celebrated 50 years this year. A lot of those original Sounders stayed, and they coached, and their coaching trees beget all of us who played after that. And those are the same moms and dads who took their kids to Sounders games that were the administrators and kept the leagues going. And so my dad being a dad of 2 kids who he was a 3-sport athlete at Auburn High School. He played, very traditionally football, basketball, baseball. He was recruited to play both football and baseball in college, and unfortunately tore his rotator cuff and couldn't. He played 1 season in college, at baseball in college, and but soccer became his love when he was in his 30s with my mom, because it was the 70s and it was the new hip thing. So they all got involved in this. Their kids were involved in it. So my dad, of course, being a lawyer and being active in the community, being part of my grandparents' legacy of always investing and giving back, volunteered to be the risk management counselor for Washington Youth Soccer. So the lawyer, the pro bono lawyer assisting sort of just risk management for the entire youth system. Fast forward to 1989 when the U.S. was bidding on the World Cup, right? And so they went to all of the places in the country where there was a strong youth soccer contingent, Washington being one of them. And so my dad got to work on the bid, assist Washington Youth Soccer and work on the bid for 1994. The impediment, of course, was that we didn't have a venue.
Right.
The Kingdom didn't meet FIFA standards in terms of a playable venue. For the World Cup, it was AstroTurf, it was domed, it wasn't going to work. And so while that bid failed, it started sort of the nascent idea of like, well, no, soccer needs to be here, and we need a venue for soccer. We didn't get to play in the inaugural year of MLS for the same reason. And so those same folks that were working on the bid started working on a stadium, and the idea of like, how do we bring MLS here? Obviously, the minor league Sounders were still in existence, and my dad, as a result of sort of all of those things, also was involved in resurrecting the Sounders in 1994. So the Sounders, while in the background in a indoor capacity and in a semi-pro and amateur capacity, had a period of dormancy between 1983 and 1994, continuous, but not playing is an outdoor professional league. And one of my dad's clients helped resurrect it in 1994 and invest in it. So my dad was also general counsel for pro bono,
right?
Again, for that entity. So all of these forces were in play when Adrian Hanauer and his family started acquiring ownership interest in that entity and the minor league franchise. And there started to be another renewed effort to locate a stadium to bring an MLS team. And that in and of itself, then you fast forward another decade, the Seahawks aren't doing well. They're about to get sold and relocated to LA. And Paul Allen comes in and says, I'll buy the team, but let's build a stadium. And in their wisdom said, you know what, we have to do this with soccer. And so, of course, at that time, my dad was the person who had done all of the work around soccer. And so was brought into the fold to pass Referendum 48 and make sure that soccer was a part of the bid for the stadium. Then, as a result of that work, Governor Locke appointed him to be the vice chair of the Public Stadium Authority. And so he has been a member of the Public Stadium Authority, vice chair and now chair, since its inception, which oversees Lumen Field. And as we all know, the statute says football soccer stadium built for purpose for the World Cup. It's the venue now for the Sounders and the Reign, and in 26, the final promise that I think he feels he personally made to the voters of Washington will be fulfilled.
That's such an incredible story and such a reminder of the long game of momentum and the seeds that he planted way back when, and making those the impacts along the way to finally see the culmination of the World Cup. That's going to be an incredible moment for both you and your dad. I can't wait for that to happen.
I don't know if I can say this. He'll be 80, so it'll be
That's pretty special.
Yes, that kickoff of that first match will be a special day.
Yeah. So, Maya, as you know, the Seattle Sports Commission's one of our signature events is the Women in Leadership Breakfast, and you have graced us with your words of wisdom, both as a panelist and on our closing speaker. Can you just share a little bit about, from your perspective, what it means to be part of that event with so many women in the room? We have men in the room as well, but it is predominantly women. And I know from my perspective, it feels somewhat magical in there. Tell me a little bit about your experience in being part of that.
It is, well, first of all, it's the single date on my calendar that when I get our Seattle Sports Commission calendar that I circle first. Right. For the reasons you just said, it's a different environment. I think there is something different in Seattle, period, in our sports community. There are a lot of women working in leadership roles in the game, and whether or not they are the talking heads that are on TV or they are the folks behind the scenes, but in a leadership role really setting course. So it's a testament to that. That's also true of companies across our city. And I think one of the things that has been really exciting for me over the last, I look at our own sort of C-suite inside of the Reign and Sounders land, and it has evolved over the last 10 years tremendously. The table, as we call it, right, to be at the table is now, I'm really proud to say, is predominantly women, which was not the case when I started, when I moved into this role or into a role with the Sounders about 11 seasons ago. So for me, it's a testament to the evolution and how Seattle is leading in some of that, and whether or not we ever get outsized credit for it, it's real and it's authentic to sort of what we expect of ourselves. I think in this city is that we are helping evolve the game, and this understanding that the industry of sport is not just the franchises, but it's the corporate entities, the sponsors, the fans, the fact that so many of those our table captains at that event bring young women to that breakfast, right? Their daughters and their sons and college students and high school students that they are involved in working with, and this recognition that the power of that room is not the room and on the day, but the legacy and paying it forward. I think that's the magic of what all of this is about. And I think you talk to anyone in any sports franchise, and we all take our lumps from fans and from the media. There's the special sauce of Seattle is authentically, truly, every single one of our sports franchises, our leaders, our owners believe that it is our obligation to make this world better. That yes, we want to win and of course increase valuations and make money like all businesses that want to do, but at the end of the day, how we do that matters, and we want to make Seattle better because we exist. And I think that room's an example of it.
Oh, I love hearing that. So you mentioned daughters. You have two young daughters of your own. How does leadership show up in your household? What are you teaching your daughters?
Well, leadership is not much different than parenting at times. I think what I said earlier about leadership being an evolution happening in real time, right? That on the leading edge, sport is on the leading edge of things, and so we're constantly having to evolve, and our leadership style has to evolve. I look at my daughters and I look at my role in the household and I say, I'm still mom, right? And no matter what I role I might play outside of those, I'm still mom.
Right.
And so I know that they look at me proudly in the role that I now have because they love women's sports and they love women's soccer. And as you know, we chase the game. We go to every Women's World Cup. They've been to every World Cup that they've each been alive for, and can't wait to go to Brazil in 27 with them. But as much as they see that, they also want. I know they look at their mom and want mom to be empathetic and inclusive, and they challenge me to do those things more and better. They're a generation that has expectations about and learnings about what it means to be inclusive. You know, my oldest daughter will always challenge me when I use language of pronoun, even if I don't know. Mom, you don't know that person's pronoun. Thank you, sweetie. That's so. I think for me, it's recognizing. It's been a recognition in the last 6 months of as I've navigated different leadership roles in a more high-profile industry, and they're aware of the fact that mommy's gone, mommy's at events, mommy's going to speak at stuff, mommy's doing things, that they are as much reflected in my evolution as a leader as I could be a role model for them,
Yeah.
right, in that leadership. So.
Now, I think that is so true. I have boys that are in the Gen Z generation, and but I've seen such a dramatic shift from the millennials and certainly Gen Xers of that idea of inclusiveness, and now your daughter's generation is just expanding upon that to a great degree. So
it's the interesting thing, right? And I think we think about these things too as like it's not binary. Like, yes, that's happening in my home, but they're also the generation that is our future fan, right?
Exactly.
And so whether it's on sustainability and just this, profound understanding that, even my 9-year or 10-year-old comes and is like, Mom, don't worry, we'll fix it for you. Like, she's aware of the generation, but the generational challenge that we're leaving. Or it's on this idea that, no, it is not odd to me that we have someone who has a pronoun that's they or them, that is in our classroom. It is not odd to me that I have multiple adults in my life who are openly and outwardly members of disproportionately impacted communities, and that my job actually is not to treat any of them differently. Why do those conditions exist, Mom? Are the questions like that makes no sense to me? And
interesting.
It pushes us, right? And I think that's our that's our future workforce, and I think our industry again often is put on the leading edge of having to balance and deal with that generational evolution in real time, and I love it. I think it's inspiring to me to sort of say that is a legacy of sport, is that we can enter that conversation and help advance equity, help advance sort of equality, and help advance something that is resonant with the next generation.
And using our fans to create that ripple effect. I mean, that's a real opportunity, which leads me to your current role. Now, you're in your 11th season with the Sounders, and you've just taken on this new role as Chief Business Officer with the Reign FC. You and I talked about the growth of the Reign over the last few years, and I felt so privileged to help play a small, tiny role in when they came from down playing in Tacoma back to Seattle, where we want and need them to be, and helping them to really have a great presence here. But now you have a completely different opportunity here. So tell us a little bit about your vision for the team, and what are you prioritizing right now?
It's really simple. This league, the NWSL, is going to be the best league in the world over the next 4 years, right? The new CBA has opened this league to the world in a different way. We've seen the outsized impact of high-profile players that are at the top of their game, whether they're domestic or they're internationals, coming to this league. And our objective is to be a leading-edge club in the best league in the world, period, full stop. It means that we are locally rooted, that we're nationally respected, and we're globally revered. And there's a lot of work to get there. But I think the amazing thing about this club is it is an inaugural member of the NWSL. It is rooted in this profound legacy of being bold, of uplifting our community, of our players, and the ability to support our players in their advocacy and how they see the world in using the platform of the club to make the world a better place. It has a profound depth of roots, which we sort of talked about when you think about what this community has produced in terms of globally relevant women's soccer players, right? Obviously, from the Reign's history, Megan Rapinoe being a founding member of the club and then retiring in 2023, Lou and Jess being here still, right? There's a continuity of sort of these outsized presence in the league. But you go back in time and you say, Amy Griffin, who's our technical director for our academy, who coaches the U.S. Deaf national team, was a member of that 91 team. Michelle Akers, right? Hello, player of the century. Right, is from here. There are so many women who didn't get the chance to play professional soccer, but have impacted the global game. it's part of our DNA. It's part of our legacy as a club to not only embrace our club history and our legacy, but those roots. That's what I'm excited for. You know, we had the opportunity this year for the Megan Rapinoe match to bring back the 85ers. The very, very first women's national team that played an international game was in 1985 in Jesolo, Italy, in August of that year. We lost our first game, tied our second game, and won our third game. Michelle Akers scored her first goal in the second game, 2-2 draw with Denmark. But 7 members of that team, of 17, right, that went to Italy, were either born and raised here or played their college ball here. The head coach was Mike Ryan, who was a denizen of youth coaching, came here when the Sounders came, an Irishman, coached forever in the high school and the youth ranks here. He was one of the first men to coach women, right? So we were able to honor them and bring them in as part of our celebration retirement of Megan Rapinoe's jersey. And I look forward to honoring the 40th anniversary of that first match they played in Jesolo with them next year, in the next summer. So there's a lot of opportunity for us. If we're going to be the best league in the world, we have to attract some of the best players. I think the CBA allows us to do that. I think we have a compelling case, you know, to make to players to come here. You know, it's been really fun for me to sit down with some of our players and just ask those questions. What comes next for you? What do you want to get better at as a human for your profession for after your soccer career? Because that has to be part of the equation. I think our ownership group is committed to that, and it's been a lot of fun to think about what comes next.
Well, it's fun for me too, and I love being part of this ecosystem of strong women leaders that are making such an impact in this community, and then that ripple effect beyond, nationally and internationally. So as we wrap up our conversation today, Maya, I have a couple of questions for you that are related to being a game changer. So who has changed the game for you the most, either personally or professionally?
I think it starts and ends with my dad. You know, it takes really interesting leadership to sort of want to mentor your own daughter through a professional career, and my dad has been the person who's pulled me in, who's pushed me off the deep end when I've needed to just jump in, and supported me in both of those things. And whether it's coaching on the field when I was a youth player, whether it's coaching me in my practice when I was a young attorney, or now in life and sort of navigating leadership in hard times and, you know, that come with just added responsibility and growth, or telling me that, you know, Maya, you need to spend more time with your kid. Remember your kids, right? And all of this, like,
As only a parent can do.
And only a parent can do,
right.
but, you know, he's had an outsized impact in sort of my life at all stages, so.
Oh, that's great. Well, and being a game changer, you know, at its core is disruptive. That's what it means. And that can also come with either pushback or resistance or isolation, because people they can be fearful of that change. What is your advice, having lived through all of those, as well as the swell of momentum? What's your advice to someone who is fighting the good fight, either swimming upstream or swimming alone in this fight to change the game?
I think it has to come back to knowing yourself and being truthful with yourself. I think it's a well-known, well-used sort of capacity building exercise for leaders, but it has different permutations. But I know what my leadership constitution is. I know those core truths about how I want to show up as a leader, and I know that if I am feeling my emotional brain is going right, my intellectual brain is spinning, trying to rationalize, that it's because something's rubbing my soul the wrong way.
Sure.
You know, and for me, it's this idea that, like, look, I fundamentally care about you. And if I break my covenant of what taking care of you in our relationship is, that's what rubs my soul the wrong way. And it could be that I I'm allowing myself to play the victim, and I need to flip that in my own brain and get out of that. And I think but it comes back to who you are at the core. I think the other thing, Beth, is, I look at sort of my generation as this interesting bridge generation, especially in sport. We entered leadership at a time when old sport leadership is still in the C-suite but was exiting. And the next layer below us is a different generation, like a different expectations. And so as a bridge, it's a constant push and pull between, do I look at the leadership style and the leaders that are ahead of me, and what can I take from that, right? As sort of like, this is, because that's experience in the industry, and yes, they've seen this situation 1,000 times. So, but then how do I translate that to a generation that expects something different from their leadership? Right. And I have felt that a lot in the last several years. Is this understanding that we're in this bridge generation, and what I walked into is not what we're going to lead. So my core matters to that, right? Right. How do I take care of the relationships and learnings that I need to undertake, and how do I translate that to take care of the people that have maybe some different expectations and are looking for something different?
Oh, that's so observant and really wise. I never thought of that gap that we're in, and it's really true. Well, Maya, this has been absolutely tremendous. Thank you for being part of the launch series of We the Game Changers. You certainly are changing the game, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to not only have you here today, but to get to work with you on a regular basis.
Me too. And we've got to bring the Women's World Cup here when we bid on that thing. So
that one's next. Next on the list.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us for our launch season of We the Game Changers. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your content. And please, share this with your network. Encourage someone else to explore their leadership journey and get inspired by game changers of every kind. This season, we'll be talking with executive chefs, professional athletes, founders, and more, each with their own unique leadership voices. From confident public speakers to introverted role models. Wherever you are in your leadership journey, all are welcome. Follow along on Seattle Sports Commission's social media and join us for our next episode.